Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're working on a Suzuki Ignition, so sit back, enjoy the ride. Alright, so this lock appears to have a code on it. It is not a stamped code, it is an inked code. And if you read it with the 8 being the correct way, it is 980, and then the last number is not visible. Could be a 2. However, in the year that this bike is, there is no 9. There's 2 possible code series. One begins with a 2, so 2000 to 3000, and the other begins with a 6, 6000 to 7000. The 6000 to 7000 has a letter in front of it, so neither one of these falls within the code series that the book is showing. So we will tear this apart and make a key for it by hand. Okay, so this does have security torque screws, so that's a torque screw with a pin in the center of it to help add some security. However, now since they've come out, you can go down to just about anywhere. Harbor Freight even has them. They sell the little kits that have all the different security bits in it. So yeah, they're not a security thing anymore. It just makes it more difficult. So we want to pull those 2 security bits out. Now this is spring loaded, so we need to be cautious when we pull it. So make sure you hold the cover down as you remove the screws. Don't remember off the top of my head if there's ball bearings in here. I apologize if my hand gets in the way. I'm trying to give you guys a good view, but I also need to be able to work. Alright, so let the pressure off easy. Okay, so now we have electrical contacts. They come up and out. And then we have the switch contacts. And there are 2 ball bearings and 2 springs. So we need to be cautious with those. Set those aside so they don't go flying. Alright, and then inside now inside you can see this little copper colored pin. That is the retainer that holds the ignition in the housing. So that needs to get pushed down, and then the cylinder should slide out through the face. And you just need something small, paper clip would work, or there's many different things that you can do to push it down. So that is push down, and then we push forward. Now you want to be careful. As you can see, that wafer wants to come out. So you need to be careful taking this apart because we don't know what the key is. We're trying to figure that out. So if you were to dump all the wafers, then you wouldn't know what order they went in. And we'll just double check. So there are no wafers on this side sticking out. So they all come out. So it's basically a single-sided key. The cuts are on both sides for convenience. But all the wafers will want to fall out. So because there's nothing on the bottom, we only need to worry about as they come out one direction. If it was opposing wafers, then we'd have to be cautious on which way we pulled it out, because we'd have to worry about wafers popping out in both sides. So we'll slide that out carefully, making sure that none of those wafers shoot out as they come out and get the spring tension off of them from the cover. Okay, so we have our ignition lockout, and we'll just double check the core, see if there were any codes on it, and there are not. Okay, so it should be an X179 key. So we'll put that in, and we'll make sure that it does reach the entire way and capture all of the wafers. So you can see none of them now are sticking up on this side where they were before. So slide that in, and we have two of them flush on the bottom, and then these two are sticking up slightly. So they're most likely a 2 cut. That's a 1, that's a 1. This one is sticking up considerably more than those. But we'll still, and these 3 are sticking up in equal amount. So most likely these are the same depth cut. We won't know until we actually go and create the key. So those are 1s, those are most likely 2s, and we'll start with 3s on those 3 cuts in order to try and create the key. Now, if you didn't have a code card, what you can do is take a small pointed device and go right next to the wafer, and you can put a scratch on the key blank, and that'll tell you the position of the wafer. If you were going to try and hand file this, you could do that, and that would give you your spacing, and then you would just file each position by hand to get the key. So let's get things situated with this. I will use the HPC machine, and so I will show you how to create a key using that machine. It's similar to filing, however, the machine will give you the exact spaces and depths, so you're not guessing on it. So when you're done, you'll have a key that is cut to factory specs, not a hand-filed key that could be a little shallow, a little deep, a little off on the spacing, so it'll be an exact factory key when we're done. Okay, so here we have the Suzuki card. It is, for anyone that's interested, a CMC71 for the HPC machine. It gives us the depths of the cuts. It gives us the spaces of the cuts. So if you had to, for whatever reason, use a micrometer card, it gives you that information. If this card were to get damaged or whatever, it gives you which jaw we use, jaw A, and it tells us the cuts are both sides. So cut one side by code, then duplicate. It gives us our blanks. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. It gives us our code series, which is the 6000, 001 to 7000. And it gives us our cutter number, which is the 1011. And then it has our spaces and our depths. And it uses the flip-up stop versus the tip stop that we used on the last one. And it gives us how it sits in the machine, and there is no shim. It's not telling us we need a shim. So let's get that situated and start working on this key. We'll roll this machine, roll the carriage out all the way. This is the flip-up tip stop right here, and that catches on the shoulder right here. So when we put the blank in, flip up the stop, slide the key in until the shoulder hits the stop, tighten it down, flip it down through, and put some number 2s in this thing. And we will hit it with a 1 cut, because that usually just kisses the key, just so that we know. Deeper cuts we'll hit with a 3 for now. It could be 4s, we don't know. Okay, so we do have the key cut at 2213133. So we'll see if that works. Okay, so put the key in, and all the cuts appear to be flush on both sides. So looks like we were able to get the key on the first try. With this, put it back in the housing and see if it turns. Alright, so we're back here at the bench. We do have the key in there. It is holding all the cuts in place. They all appear to be flush. However, with the key in there, we cannot put the cylinder back in to the housing, so we need to take that key out. Again, being cautious not to allow the wafers to go flying everywhere, because as you can see, they do come out easily. So if you were to tip it over, they would all just dump out. And again, it's not so bad now that we have a key. But if you were just doing that and you dumped out several and they just kind of fell in a pile, you wouldn't know which one went where. And if they were different cuts, you know, you would be playing hunt and peck games, creating keys for all the different possible combinations. So just that's something to be cautious of. And now with the key gone, this retainer pushes in all the way. It was in the off position, so that tells us where to set it up, and we can just take something to push down on that retainer to allow it to slide in. All it has to do is start sliding in. Can be a little finicky. Oh, we just shot a wafer. Alright, need to stop and put it back. So, alright, it started. Now we just need to make sure all the wafers sit down to go into the lock. It does want to fight us, but with patience and diligence you will be victorious. Apologize if my hands get in the way. It wants to be a booger. I'm trying to do this so that you guys can see. Makes it more difficult for me, but it's okay. Oh, okay, let's try this. We'll put this in here. We'll pull down all the wafers. There we go. So by putting the tension tool in, we're able to pull all the wafers down versus trying to slide them in like I was doing. There's more than one way to skin a cat. Alright. And it turns out that I put it in the wrong position. Put it in upside down. Okay. So we need to get that retainer down. Get that started. There we go. Then we'll pull all the wafers down. And if they pop up, they will bind at times, so you have to kind of finesse them. Like this one here, there we go. It was popping up and it wasn't allowing the bottom part of the wafer to go into the lock. Alright, so there we go. It is now slid in all the way. Our retainer has popped back up to hold the lock in place. We'll try our key. And there we go. On, off. And it pulls out. So now we need to put this back together. So on this here, you can see that it has a little groove in it here, which corresponds to the groove there. So this can only go in one way. Remember, it does have the ball bearings on it. I'm amazingly surprised that they're still stuck on there. But we'll still be cautious. This goes in. We need to maneuver it gently until it slides down on that pin. Okay, so now we've gotten that in. As you can see, it is spring loaded with those ball bearings and the springs. That's what creates the spring loading. Okay, so this can only go in one way. So we have our electrical switches contacts here that correspond with the wires, and then these copper contacts in here. It does have notches cut out in as well, and there are notches here on the lock body itself. Alright, so you put that in. You can see that it is still spring loaded, seems to be in the right position. Everything seems to be working correctly right now. Put the cover back on. That just sits on. And then we'll hold in the cover down, keeping everything tight. We'll get our screws started. And that screws down. Again, it is a security Torx, so they are a little more finicky than a normal Torx, but they're not too bad. Alright, so we have everything together. Again, we only have the key cut one way on one side, so put it in one way and it works. That is a little stiff in there. Put it in the other way, it doesn't work because it's not cut on that side. So the lock was a little dry, but it is working. You know, the more it works, the more you put the key in, the better it works. Basically, everything's just a little stiff because it hasn't been used in who knows how long. So now we'll take this key over to the duplicator, and we'll duplicate these cuts on the other side, and we'll have the key completed. And just for fun, I'll show you how to find out what the code actually is for this key. On the program, it does allow that. So let me get this key finished duplicated and working both sides, and then I will show you on the computer how to figure out what the actual code is for this lock. Alright, so here we are over at the duplicator. For those who've seen my other videos, they recognize it. Okay, so we're going to duplicate this key. So that goes into this jaw here. So we will put that in. Flip up the shoulder stop. Tighten the key down. Okay, so we then say it's in jaw A. Position, let's see if I can get rid of the glare for you. So it is in jaw A. The position is 0, which is the flip stop. So we're all set there. Just hit start. And then this laser will send a beam up, and it will read the profile of the key. And then until you hit stop, it will remember. So until you hit stop, it'll remember that profile. If if you were trying to play with a Warren key, you can change the depth and spaces to try and get it working correctly. That's really more effort than it's worth, so we never touch that. The blank. Put it in this jaw. Flip up. Hit the stop. And then we come down, we hit start. It asks us how many we want. You can do that if you're doing multiples, or just keep track and count them as you cut them. And then we just hit start again. And it will load and cut the key. Alright, so now we've cut both sides of the key. So now we have both sides of the key cut. Alright, so something we can do with the code program we have. There's a couple different ones. There's HPC and there's generic code. Those are the two I have in this computer. Currently I have generic code up. So we'll look for a general code. And we know that the code series is 6001 to 7000. So we'll just put in 6001. We'll do all locks. I mean, you can narrow your search down, and I find it's just faster to do it this way. So the comments are in alphabetical order. So we'll come down, and we have Suzuki motorcycle. Right here, Suzuki motorcycle 88 plus. It tells us our blank is the X179, so that's all correct. So we'll open that. And then we can do cuts to code. It's right there. So we can do cuts to code. Click on that. Opens up this box. So if you were using, if you had a partial key, so someone came in with a broken key, you could take the known cuts and put them in, and then either say you don't know, or so if unknown cuts is the dash, or if you have a worn key, you can say you think it's a 3, and then you could say, well, it might be a 2, or it may be a miscut key, so it could be a 4. So you can check these boxes, and it will generate a list of all possible code keys. Now, that is all well and good unless the lock has been rekeyed, and then there's no guarantee that the person who rekeyed it keyed it to a code. I mean, you could just take and put whatever wafers you want in whatever positions. The key that you create would work. However, it wouldn't be a specific code. So the cuts on this were 221, 3133. So we can click OK, and it has given us a 6592 code. So that is the code for this key. So say for instance we didn't know, so it was broken key that the last 2 cuts were missing. So We have 22131, and then we'll do dash dash. So we don't know, for example. So you would say okay, and then it would give you a list of keys. It would give you a list of key codes. It'll give you the cuts for those codes, but our code is 6592 for this current lock. So there you go. There's making a Suzuki key without a code, using the ignition, and then reverse engineering the cuts that you got to be able to then give the customer what the code is for their records. So if they ever lose the key, again, they can then go to any locksmith in the country with that code, if they're traveling or whatever, and they should be able to get another key for their motorcycle without having to go through tearing locks apart and bringing locks to the locksmith or what have you. They'll have the code. Thanks for watching. God bless. Have a wonderful day.